Good morning, dear students. Today we are going to discuss about diaphragm. It is also known as the thoracoabdominal diaphragm. Okay, it is very important question from examination point of view. It comes as LAQ and also the short notes and very short notes. And you will be getting questions in your PG entrance examination from the diaphragm. So it is very important. I would request all of you to pay attention and listen the whole video of this class. Now we shall be discussing diaphragm under following headings: the definition of the diaphragm, the origin insertion of the diaphragm, major and minor openings of the diaphragm, blood supply, nerve supply, and applied anatomy related to the diaphragm. Coming to the introductory part of the diaphragm, we shall be discussing the definition in this slide. Now, diaphragm is a dome-shaped musculo-aponeurotic partition. As you can see in this picture, it is dome-shaped musculo-aponeurotic partition which intervenes between the thorax and the abdomen. Okay, so it is a musculo-aponeurotic partition, that it is made up of muscle and also aponeurosis. Okay, now the diaphragm forms roof of the abdomen. So as you can see in this picture, it is forming the roof of the abdomen. The peripheral part of the diaphragm is muscular. As you can see in this picture, the peripheral part of the diaphragm, it is made up of muscle, that is the striated muscle. Whereas the central part of the diaphragm, as you can see in this picture, it is tendinous, which is occupied by the central tendon. It is known as the central tendon of the diaphragm. Let us discuss about the origin of the diaphragm. It arises from the inner surface of the thoracic outlet. As you can see in this picture, that it arises from the inner surface of the thoracic outlet. And the origins are arranged in three groups. Number one, the sternal origin. Number two, the costal origin. And number three, vertebral or the lumbar origin of the diaphragm. So we can make out here the sternal origin, number one. Number two, the costal origin of the diaphragm. And the last one is the vertebral or the lumbar origin of the diaphragm. Now let us see the sternal origin of the diaphragm. By two fleshy slabs from the back of the xiphoid process. So the sternum has got the manubrium body and the xiphoid process. Okay, so from the posterior part of the xiphoid process, we have the origin of the sternal part of the diaphragm. Then the next one, the costal origin. Costal origin, the diaphragm arises from the inner surface of the lower six ribs. From the inner surface of the lower six ribs and their costal cartilages interdigitating with the transverse abdominis muscle. That you should remember, transverse abdominis muscle. Okay, so these are the origins of the diaphragm. One is sternal origin arising from the back of the xiphoid process. The costal origin, costa means rib, from the inner surface of the lower six ribs and also their costal cartilages and the interdigitating with the transversus abdominis muscle. In the previous slide, we discussed about the sternal and the costal origin of the diaphragm. Now let us see the vertebral or the lumbar origin of the diaphragm. This is very important. So we can make out here, these are the vertebral bodies, right? And we can also see the intervertebral discs. So the lumbar or the vertebral origin of the diaphragm on either side arises from three sources. Number one source, from a pair of crura, right and left. Let us see. So this is the right crus of the diaphragm and this is the left crus of the diaphragm. Remember this. Okay, this is the left crus and this is the right crus of the diaphragm. So right crus is longer and more muscular than the left. So if you see the right crus of the diaphragm, it is longer and more muscular than the left crus, and it arises from the front of the bodies and intervertebral discs IVD. So right crus arises from the bodies and intervertebral discs of the upper three lumbar vertebrae, upper three L1, L2 and L3, upper three lumbar vertebrae. The fleshy right crus, it exerts more work to displace heavy organ like the liver during inspiration. Okay, you see the displacement of heavy organ like the liver during inspiration because of the fleshy right crus. Now, close to the esophageal opening of the right crus, you can see here, this is the esophageal opening of the diaphragm. So close to the esophageal opening, the right crus gives attachment to suspensory muscle of the duodenum. Okay, this I'll show you in the next slide. So close to the esophageal opening, the right crus gives attachment to the suspensory muscle of the duodenum, which is attached below to the duodenojejunal flexure. Duodenojejunal flexure. Now left crus, let us discuss about left crus. The left crus arises from the bodies and the intervertebral discs of the upper two lumbar vertebrae. Both crura connected across the midline by median arcuate ligament. So we can see here, this is the median arcuate ligament, exactly this point. So all of you pay attention here. Both the crura, the right crus and the left crus, so they are connected across the middle line by median arcuate ligament. So this is about the vertebral origin of the diaphragm, that it arises from two crura, the right crus and the left crus. Okay, so the origins you have to remember. So dear students, in the previous slide I told you that close to the esophageal opening of the diaphragm, the right crus gives attachment to the suspensory muscle of the duodenum. All of you see, this is actually the suspensory muscle of the duodenum. So this suspensory muscle of the duodenum, it is attached close to the esophageal opening of the diaphragm. Okay, so which is attached below to the duodenojejunal flexure. So below it is attached to the duodenojejunal flexure. Okay, this you have to remember. This is very, very important. So dear students, with this we have completed the first point, that is the origin of the diaphragm from a pair of crura, the right and left. Okay, so basically the vertebral origin of the diaphragm arises from three sources. So one source we have completed, that it arises from the right and left crus of the diaphragm, and in this slide we have also seen the attachment of the suspensory muscle of the duodenum. Okay, now coming to the second source of the vertebral origin of the diaphragm, from a pair of medial arcuate ligaments, also known as the medial lumbocostal arch. Now, where are these medial arcuate ligaments? So let me show you. So this is the medial arcuate ligament, a pair of medial, this one is medial arcuate ligament and this is also medial arcuate ligament, right? So from a pair of medial arcuate ligaments, now each medial arcuate ligament, it bridges across the front of the psoas major muscle, and it is formed by the thickening of the psoas fascia. So each medial arcuate ligament bridges across the front of the psoas major muscle, and it is formed by psoas fascia. Now it is attached medially to the bodies of the first or second lumbar vertebra. So medial arcuate ligament, medially it is attached to the bodies of L1 or L2 vertebra. Okay, and laterally to the tip of the transverse process of first lumbar vertebra. Remember, this is important. So medial arcuate ligament medially attached to the first or second lumbar vertebra, and laterally it is attached to the tip of the transverse process of the first lumbar vertebra, and laterally to the tip of the transverse process of the first lumbar vertebra. So this you have to remember. So from a pair of medial arcuate ligaments, so these medial arcuate ligaments, they bridge across the front of the psoas major muscle. These two medial arcuate ligaments, they are formed by the thickening of the psoas fascia. So medially attached to the first or second lumbar vertebra, and laterally attached to the tip of the transverse process of the first lumbar vertebra. Now coming to the third source of the origin of the vertebral part of the diaphragm, from a pair of lateral arcuate ligaments, also known as the lateral lumbocostal arch. So first of all, let me show you where is the location of lateral arcuate ligaments. You can see here, this is one the lateral arcuate ligament, and this is the other lateral arcuate ligament. Now each ligament arches in front of the quadratus lumborum muscle. So you can see here, this is quadratus lumborum, and here also we can see this is quadratus lumborum. So each lateral arcuate ligament bridges across the quadratus lumborum muscle, and it is formed by thickening of the anterior layer of thoracolumbar fascia. So lateral arcuate ligaments, they are formed by thickening of the anterior layer of thoracolumbar fascia, and the lateral arcuate ligament, medially it is attached to the tip of the transverse process of first lumbar vertebra, and laterally to the lower border of the 12th rib. So this is the attachment of the lateral arcuate ligament. So with this we have finished the vertebral origin of the diaphragm, that it arises from three sources. Okay. Let us discuss about the insertion of the diaphragm. Now all the fibers are inserted into the central tendon, which is situated in the median depressed part of the diaphragm close to the sternum. So all of you see, so this is actually the central tendon. So all the fibers of the diaphragm, so they are inserted into the central part, which is situated in the median depressed part of the diaphragm, we can say. So that is close to the sternum. So all the fibers of the diaphragm, they are getting inserted at the central tendon of the diaphragm. Now this, if you see the shape of the central tendon of the diaphragm, it is shaped like trefoil leaf. The trefoil leaf, right? So it is shaped like a trefoil leaf, having median in the midline, right and left leaflets. Okay, if you see the logo of the Adidas logo, if you see you can see the trefoil leaf. So having median, right and left leaflets. Okay, so the central, that is the shape of the central tendon of the diaphragm. So it is shaped like a trefoil leaf, having median, right and left leaflets. Now at the junction of median and right leaflets, so we can see at the junction of median and the right leaflet, we have the vena cava opening. You can see in this diagram the inferior vena cava opening. So at the junction of the median and the right leaflet, we can see opening of the inferior vena cava, and to the left of the opening, it presents central point of the decussation. So we can see here, to the left of the opening, it presents a central point of decussation from which the four diagonal bands radiate. Now the sternal fibers are shortest, which are arising from the sternum. So the sternal fibers are shortest, and those arising from the ninth costal cartilage are the longest. So that you have to remember. So this is about the insertion of the diaphragm, that it has got it is in, all the fibers of the diaphragm, they are inserted into the central tendon. It consists of the median leaflet and median and right and left leaflets. Okay, this you have to remember. So dear students, so far we have discussed the definition, origin and insertion of the diaphragm. Before we proceed for the openings of the diaphragm, I want answers from few students uh, regarding the origin, insertion and the definition of the diaphragm. You record the answers and send it to me. Roll number 135 Abhilash and Vikram Paul. I don't know your roll number, but you record your answer and send it to me tomorrow. And also the roll number 90, you record your answer and send it to me tomorrow. And Ashish, you also record your answer and send it to me tomorrow regarding the definition, the origin and insertion of the diaphragm. Okay, now let us see the openings of the diaphragm. This is very important because it comes as a short notes also in the exam, the major and minor openings of the diaphragm, and they have been asking in the final practical examinations also regarding the openings of the diaphragm. The openings of the diaphragm are classified into major and minor. Major openings and minor openings. Major openings are vena cava opening, that means the inferior vena cava opening, esophageal opening and aortic opening. These are known as the major openings of the diaphragm because the major structures are passing through these openings from the thorax. So inferior vena cava opening, esophageal opening and aortic opening. Now let us discuss about vena cava opening. It is situated in the central tendon. You can see here the vena cava opening. It is situated in the central tendon at the junction of median and right leaflets of the central tendon of the diaphragm. Opposite the disc between 8th and 9th thoracic vertebrae. Opposite the disc between 8th and 9th thoracic vertebrae, about 2.5 centimeters right of the median plane. 2.5 centimeters right of the median plane. Now what is the shape of this opening? It is quadrilateral in shape, right? Now what are the structures passing through these vena cava opening? Number one, that is inferior vena cava, the wall of which is adherent to the fibrous ring of the opening. Now few branches of right phrenic nerve. So we can see here the right phrenic nerve. So few branches of right phrenic nerve passes through this inferior vena cava opening, and few lymphatic vessels from the liver pass through this inferior vena cava opening. Now what is the effect of contraction? So when the diaphragm contracts, as in case of inspiration, the vena cava opening dilates. The vena cava opening dilates and more blood enters the right atrium. So that is the significance of the contraction of the diaphragm in inspiration. So you see the inferior vena cava opening dilates and more blood enters the right atrium of the heart. Now let us discuss about esophageal opening of the diaphragm. This is one of the major opening of the diaphragm. See, in this picture we can make out this is exactly the esophageal opening of the diaphragm, and this is the inferior vena cava opening which we have discussed in the previous slide. Now situation of the esophageal opening in the muscular part of the diaphragm. It is situated in the muscular part of the diaphragm at the level of 10th thoracic vertebra. This is important, you have to remember. About 1.25 centimeters to the left of the median plane. Okay, so it is situated in the muscular part of the diaphragm at the level of 10th thoracic vertebra, about 1.25 centimeters left of the median plane. Shape and formation, it is elliptical in shape. The opening is elliptical in shape and it is formed by splitting of the fibers of the right crus. So you can see here, so it is elliptical in shape. This is the right crus of the diaphragm. So it is formed by the splitting of the fibers of the right crus of the diaphragm. So that you have to remember. So the splitting of the fibers, you can make out this one and this is the right crus. Both these are the right crus, and you can see here the splitting of the right crus of the diaphragm. So it is formed by splitting of the right crus of the diaphragm. Now what are the structures passing through the esophageal opening? Number one, esophagus, which is a major structure passing through the esophageal opening. Number two, anterior and posterior vagal trunks formed respectively by left and the right vagus nerves. Then esophageal branches of the left gastric artery and corresponding tributaries of the left gastric vein, and lymphatics from the liver pass through the esophageal opening. Now phrenoesophageal ligament extends upwards from the subdiaphragmatic fascia to fibrous coat of the esophagus. Now, effect of contraction: it prevents regurgitation of food from the stomach to the esophagus. During inspiration, the opening is constricted, hence inspiration and deglutition cannot take place simultaneously. So this is, you have to remember, effect of contraction of the diaphragm prevents regurgitation of food from the stomach to the esophagus. During inspiration, the opening is constricted, hence inspiration and deglutition means swallowing, can't take place simultaneously. So this is about the esophageal opening of the diaphragm. So you have to remember major structures passing through the esophageal opening. One is major, that is esophagus, and the anterior and posterior vagal trunks, esophageal branches of left gastric artery, and lymphatics from the liver. So dear students, in the previous slide, I told you regarding the phrenoesophageal ligament. Let me show you what is this. So phrenoesophageal ligament, it extends upwards. It extends upwards from the subdiaphragmatic fascia. Okay, the subdiaphragmatic fascia to the fibrous coat of the esophagus. So this is the phrenoesophageal ligaments extending from the subdiaphragmatic fascia to the fibrous coat of the esophagus. So this is the phrenoesophageal ligament. Remember this is very helpful in the PG entrance examination. Now let us discuss about the aortic opening of the diaphragm. This is one of the major openings of the diaphragm. Situation: it is situated behind the diaphragm at the level of lower border of 12th thoracic vertebra. This vertebral level is very important. The aortic opening of the diaphragm, it is located at the level of 12th thoracic vertebra. You can see here, this is inferior vena cava opening, this is esophageal opening, and this is your aortic opening. So slightly to the left of the median plane, slightly to the left of the median plane. What are the structures passing from left to right from this opening? Number one, the abdominal aorta, which is a major structure passing from the aortic opening. Then the thoracic duct also passes through this opening, and sometimes the azygous vein when it arises as lumbar azygous vein. So these are the structures passing through the aortic opening of the diaphragm from left to right. We have the abdominal aorta, the thoracic duct, and sometimes azygous vein when it arises as the lumbar azygous vein. So this is about the aortic opening of the diaphragm. So dear students, we have completed the major openings of the diaphragm. Before we proceed for the minor openings, let me ask you few questions regarding the major openings. Roll number 7 Akshaya, and roll number 49 Rakesh, and roll number 157 Madini, and roll number 151 Shweta. Record your answers regarding the major openings of the diaphragm and send it to me tomorrow. Then only I'll give you the attendance. Okay. Now let us proceed for the minor openings of the diaphragm. So a triangular gap known as space of Larry is present between the sternal origin. So this is the sternal origin of the diaphragm, and that from the seventh costal cartilage. That is called the space of Larry. So it transmits superior epigastric vessel and lymphatics from the liver. So when the opening is enlarged, it is known as foramen of Morgagni. So we say this is important, you have to remember. So there is foramen of Morgagni in the diaphragm that comes under minor openings. A triangular gap which is known as a space of Larry present between the sternal origin of the diaphragm and that from the seventh costal cartilage. So what it transmits are the superior epigastric vessels and few lymphatics from the liver. So when this opening is enlarged, it is known as foramen of Morgagni. Now minor openings of the diaphragm, if we continue, between the digitations of costal origins of the diaphragm and the transversus abdominis, the lower 5 intercostal nerves, the lower 5 vessels and the intercostal nerves. So this I will show you in the next slide, that the lower 5 intercostal nerves, and between the costal origins of the diaphragm and the 7th and 8th cartilage musculophrenic vessels, behind the lateral arcuate ligament, the subcostal vesiline nerve, behind the medial arcuate ligament, this already you know what is lateral arcuate ligament and medial arcuate ligaments, the sympathetic trunk, sometimes the least splanchnic nerve. Piercing each crus, we have greater and lesser splanchnic nerves. So these are the minor structures passing through the minor openings of the diaphragm. So in this diagram we can make out the minor openings gives the passage of the lower 5 intercostal nerves, and behind the lateral arcuate ligament there is a passage of the subcostal nerve, and behind the medial arcuate ligament we see the passage of the sympathetic trunk. Okay, let us continue with the minor openings. Right crus is sometimes pierced by azygous vein. So we can see here the right crus, sometimes it is pierced by the azygous vein. Left crus, as a rule, it is pierced by inferior hemiazygous vein. Inferior hemiazygous vein. The left phrenic nerve pierces the left cupola in front of the central tendon. The left phrenic nerve pierces the left cupola in front of the central tendon. Sometimes a small opening present in the central tendon between the median and left leaflets. It transmits a small vein which is a remnant of suprahepatic part of the left vitelline vein. So sometimes you see a small opening present in the central tendon between the median and the left leaflet. There will be a small opening. So this opening transmits a small vein which is a remnant of the suprahepatic part of the left vitelline vein. So this is of embryological significance. Okay, so remember these are the minor openings of the diaphragm. So dear students, to have a quick recap about the openings of the diaphragm, so in this picture we can make out the foramen of Morgagni, the right and Larry left. So internal thoracic artery and veins turning into superior epigastric artery and vein. Okay, then here the vena cava hiatus, we can see the inferior vena cava and right phrenic nerve are branches of the from it. Okay, then minor apertures crossing the crura, uh, the greater splanchnic nerves, lesser splanchnic nerves, least splanchnic nerve, azygous vein and hemiazygous vein. So here we can make out the aortic hiatus. What are the structures passing from it? The aorta, azygous and hemiazygous veins, thoracic duct, aortic plexus and additional lymphatic vessel descending to the cisterna chyli. Then we have esophageal hiatus, esophagus, anterior and posterior vagal trunks, phrenico-abdominal branch of the left phrenic nerve, esophageal branch of left gastric artery, and esophageal tributaries of the left gastric vein. So this is about the openings of the diaphragm, both the major and minor. So dear students, we have completed the major and minor openings. So before going into the nerve supply, I would like I want answers from the roll numbers, roll number 2 Shravanti, and roll number 72 Meghraj, and roll number 133 Ajay, and roll number 124 Shivani, tell me about the minor openings of the diaphragm. Okay, tomorrow you record the minor openings of the diaphragm and send it to me. Okay, now let us proceed with the nerve supply. Coming to the motor supply of the diaphragm, so since it is a muscle, it is supplied by motor nerve. Motor supply of the entire diaphragm, it is derived from the phrenic nerve C3, C4 and C5 coming from the brachial plexus. Okay, so motor supply is by the phrenic nerve. Each phrenic nerve pierces the diaphragm and ramifies abdominal surface. This is abdominal surface, right? So it ramifies over the abdominal surface and it supplies the diaphragm. On the abdominal surface, each nerve divides into anteromedial, the sternal, anterolateral and posteromedial and posterolateral branches. So these are the branches from the phrenic nerve over the abdominal surface of the diaphragm. So right phrenic nerve supplies right part of the diaphragm up to the right margin of the esophageal opening. So this is the right phrenic nerve, right? We can make out here in this diagram. So the right phrenic nerve supplies the right part of the diaphragm up to the margin of the esophageal opening. Left phrenic nerve supplies left part of the diaphragm up to the left margin of the esophageal opening. Therefore, the right crus is supplied by both the phrenic nerves, whereas the left crus is supplied by only by the left phrenic nerve. So that you have to remember. So please students, you have to note down each and every point from this lecture because all the points are very important. Okay, so that is regarding the motor supply which we have discussed in the previous slide. Sensory supply of the diaphragm, central part by the phrenic nerve, peripheral part by lower 6 or 7 intercostal nerves. Then the sympathetic innervation of the diaphragm from the celiac plexus via the inferior phrenic plexus. It probably maintains the tone of the diaphragm by lessening the fatigue of the muscle. So that is the significance of the sympathetic innervation of the diaphragm, that it maintains, the sympathetic innervation maintains the tone of the diaphragm by lessening the fatigue of the muscle. So we have completed the nerve supply. Before going into the blood supply of the diaphragm, so let me ask you questions. Roll number 41 Saurabh and roll number 84 Radhika and Srija, I don't know your roll number, and Vaishnavi, roll number 167. So tomorrow you have to tell me the nerve supply of the diaphragm, record your answer and send it to me tomorrow. Okay, now let us discuss about the blood supply. Musculophrenic and pericardiophonic. Musculophrenic and pericardiophonic, which are the branches from the internal thoracic artery, right? So internal thoracic artery, it is a branch of which artery? Who will tell me about the internal thoracic artery? So roll number 168, you tell me that internal thoracic artery is a branch of which artery? Okay, so musculophrenic and pericardiophonic arteries, they are the branches from the internal thoracic artery. They supply the diaphragm. Lower 5 or 6 posterior intercostal arteries. Superior phrenic artery, last branch of the descending thoracic aorta, the superior phrenic artery, which is the last branch from the descending thoracic aorta. Inferior phrenic artery, first branch of the abdominal aorta. So veins corresponds with the arteries and drain into the systemic veins. So all these arteries, they supply the diaphragm. Okay, so anterior branch of left phrenic artery you can make out, the lateral branches of inferior phrenic artery you can make out, some suprarenal branches of left inferior phrenic arteries also you can make out. So these branches basically they supply the so-called the diaphragm. Coming to the applied anatomy, we shall discuss about the diaphragmatic hernias in the applied anatomy. So on rare occasions, foramen of Morgagni may be present due to failure of sternal origin of the diaphragm. So through the gap, abdominal viscera may herniate into the thorax. Okay, if there is absence of the sternal origin of the diaphragm, so through the gap, abdominal viscera may herniate into the thorax. Okay, then we have one hernia related to the diaphragm, the costovertebral trigone or Bosdelik's triangle. Sometimes also it is known as Bosdelik hernia. Sometimes the diaphragm fails to arise from the lateral arcuate ligament on one or both sides, forming a triangular gap which is known as costovertebral trigone. So a congenital diaphragmatic hernia takes place through that opening and abdominal viscera herniate into the thorax due to positive intra-abdominal pressure. So this Bosdelik's hernia is usually observed on the left side. So in this diagram we can make out this is the normal diaphragm. So Bosdelik's diaphragmatic defect with herniation of small right intestines. Here we can see they herniate into the thorax. So this is about the Bosdelik's hernia. Sometimes the diaphragm fails to arise from the lateral arcuate ligament, one or both sides, forming triangular gap known as costovertebral trigone. So congenital diaphragmatic hernia takes place through this opening, and abdominal viscera may herniate into the thorax due to positive intra-abdominal pressure. This is Bosdelik's hernia, is usually observed on the left side. So this we can make out here. Okay, the intestinal loops in the thorax. So this is called the Bosdelik's hernia. Coming to the hiatal hernia, it is a condition where a part of the stomach moves up into the chest cavity. Part of the stomach moves up into the chest cavity through a weakened area of the diaphragm. So which is known as the hiatal hernia. Okay. So normally portion of the esophagus and all of the stomach are situated in the abdominal cavity, but in hiatal hernia, stomach moves up into the chest cavity through a weakened area of the diaphragm. So this hiatal hernia, it is classified into two types. One is sliding, the other is rolling type of hernia. Now what is the sliding hernia? Sliding hernia is more common and takes place when gastroesophageal junction slides into the thorax. So we can see here the sliding hernia, the gastroesophageal junction slides into the thorax through a lax hiatus. Particularly in lying, this is associated with regurgitation of acid from stomach to the esophagus, and it is expressed as heartburn. So this you have to remember, this is called the sliding, the hiatal hernia, right? So it is more common and takes place when gastroesophageal junction slides into the thorax. Then next we have the rolling hernia, also known as the paraesophageal hernia. Okay, remember this, the rolling hernia also known as the paraesophageal hernia. The gastroesophageal junction remains in normal position. So you can make out here the the esophageal junction, it is remain in normal position, and the hernial sac containing usually the fundus of the stomach projects into the thorax by the side of the esophagus. So that is why it is known as the paraesophageal hiatal hernia or the rolling type of hernia. So the patient may complain of pain, nausea and dysphagia, which is nothing but difficulty in swallowing. So these are the complications of the rolling hernia, also known as the paraesophageal hernia. So with this we have completed the gross anatomy of the diaphragm. We started with the definition. We have seen the origin, insertion of the diaphragm, and we have seen the major and minor openings of the diaphragm. Then we discussed about the blood supply, nerve supply. and we discussed about regarding the diaphragmatic hernias. Okay, so thank you dear students, and uh, all students to whom I gave homework, they have to do and they have to submit it on time. Thank you so much.